Hey, welcome to another Flare Corp Media astrophotography tutorial thing. I'm Jason, and today I'm going to show you how to make this. It's pretty neat, right? And what exactly is that? Well, that is at St. Catherine's Chapel on the Rock in Colorado, and it is 312 images that I've turned into a Star Trails video. And so I'm going to teach you how to make that Star Trails video today. Now, obviously, the first thing you have to do is capture the images. So what I did was I went out to the location and put my camera on a tripod down low so the wind wouldn't blow it around, and I found the North Star. That's pretty easy to do. There are plenty of apps out there that can help you find it if you're not sure. And so then I just lined myself up so that the North Star was directly above the center of my image and right in the middle of my picture so that everything would rotate around that point, because that's what the heavens do. The stars, they rotate around the North Star. So if that's right in the middle of your shot, everything's going to rotate perfectly. If it's not, you can do pretty cool stuff where you intentionally don't look at the North Star and you let the stars like streak across the sky. That's a completely different look. Not what we're doing today though. So then I just put my camera on time-lapse mode and I recorded 312 images, I believe, by the time I was done. That's a 16 millimeter crop lens, but 16 millimeter wide angle lens at f3.6. and each image was 15 seconds long. So kind of experiment a little bit to find out what you want. The main thing you want to do is make sure you don't have any natural star trails where you leave your exposure open for too long. When you're pretty wide angle like I was, you can get away with a decent amount of time, maybe up to 30 seconds, but I didn't need that much time, so I just did 15 seconds. So the first part of this is to load the images off of your SD card onto your computer, which I've already done, and I've got those all here. And if we look at the first and the last image, let's see, first and last image, you can see how much the stars have moved. So these two stars up here are now down here after that 2-hour time span. And so that means that right there's the North Star. So everything's going to rotate around that. And so those stars have rotated. Okay, now what we need to do is we're going to use Lightroom. I'm going to pull all of these images in there. So I'm just going to click Import and come to those original photos. And I'm going to import them. Give that just a moment. The import finished, and if we look at some of these here, you can see that there are some clouds at the beginning of my time lapse. But if we go a little bit further on, all the clouds have gone away. And I don't want the clouds because they do kind of interfere with the star trails process that we're going to create. And so I'm actually going to come and cut out those. Something about right there is probably enough. So I'm just going to delete those. There we go. Okay, now what I want to do is go through and look for any obvious airplanes, because those will cause problems. You may enjoy seeing the airplanes in your final image, and that's fine. I chose not to have them, and I did have a number that went through here. So when you see things like here's a road with a car going by, I'm not going to worry about that. I'll take care of that later. But right now, I just want to look for some airplanes. And you see right there, there's one going by. But that one's not too bad because it's very faint. What I'm looking for are the big, blinky light, slow-flying planes. That one, you barely even notice in the final shot. So let's find one here. There we go. So you see that big plane coming through. That will very much be noticeable in the final image. And so what I'm going to do is just erase that. So I'm going to go to Develop, and we're going to zoom in here. And I'm just going to use the healing tool, I believe is what this one is called, and just going to brush right over that. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're doing this is don't let this the part that's going to be cloned over it, let go over another star. Because now we're going to have a fake star here, and the software may get confused. It may you might see that star like all of a sudden pop up and disappear. So you really want to just try to find a nice blank spot. Where it had it earlier was actually pretty good. Another thing is you don't want to pick like something right next to it necessarily, because the software is looking for lights that change and it's going to try to make a trail between them. And so by having something immediately right next to it, it might cause errors. So, if you can find a nice dark area a little bit away, it's going to play nicely with the next software we use. So there's that image, and I'm going to go to the next one, and I'm going to just erase that as well. Same type of thing, just kind of put it there. And I'm going to do that over and over and over again. There are a lot of planes. There goes another one. So those are the ones we want to erase, not the little faint white ones. So let me go ahead and erase all of those. And we'll keep going. Okay, so I think I ended up removing about 6 airplanes, but now we're ready to go. Next step is to just export these. Now, in case you're wondering, I am using JPEGs for this demo, though when I did this originally, I used RAW. Doesn't really matter because I'm not going to be doing a whole lot of editing anyway, but just wanted to throw that out there in case you were curious what file format I was using. So we're going to come and select all of our images. And again, for speed's sake with this demo, I'm just going to use JPEG export. Now I do want to make one note about naming these when you export them, and that's that we need to account for leading zeros. The software we're going to use doesn't seem to understand that 1 and then 2 and then 3 should be the right order. If you have like 1 and 100 and 2 and 3 and down to 100, it'll put them in the order, auto sort them 1, 100, and then if you had like 101, 102, 103, eventually then it'd get down to 2, 3, 4. So we need to add some leading zeros to make sure that the sort is correct. If that didn't make a whole lot of sense, it doesn't matter. You'll see it here in a second when I do it. So let's come here and edit the file name. Go and get rid of whatever I had in there. And I just want to come here to sequence and date, and I'm going to click on the sequence and do sequence number. Now I have less than 1,000, but over 100 images. So I need 2 0 places before it. So I'm just going to do that. Done. And again, for this, I'm just going to do JPEG because it's faster for this demo. And we'll export, and it should prompt me where I want to save these. So I'll just make a new folder called No Planes. And we will export those there. I'll be right back after that finishes. Okay, that finished exporting, so we are done with Lightroom. So we can close that. And you see now I have my No Planes folder with all of my images in there. And you can see what I named it as 001, 0020. So when it auto sorts it, it's going to make sense. Next, we need to download some software. This is the software that's actually going to make those trails. And that software is StarStaX. I'll have a link to that in the video description down below. It is available for Mac, both M1 and the Intel version of Mac, as well as Windows. So I've already got that installed, so I don't need to do that. Now, if when you go to launch it, you get this message, StarStaX cannot be opened because it's not by a verified developer, that's okay. You make the decision if you want to trust him. I trust him. I've ran the software. But in order to get past that, we need to manually go to the application and find StarStaX, right-click on it, and click Open. And by doing this right-click, that's going to give you the Open option. Okay, so here's the software, and we just need to drop our images right in there. So I'm going to Command A and drag them over there. And you see, this is where I was talking about. It was auto sorting, so we need to make sure we have those leading zeros. Now we need to come and tweak some settings here. Let me blow that up a bit. And what we're going to do is the gap filling method. And that's just in case you had a space in between your images, like you took a 15-second photo and then like your camera processed it for a second or something, and then you took another 15-second photo. There's going to be a little bit of gaps in between those. And so we're just going to gap fill that. Now, you could just let go like this without comment mode turned on. And what that's going to do is create from the very first point of that star to the very end, it's going to leave a trail of light. Now, the video I showed you at the beginning of this was using the comment mode. And what comment mode is it takes whatever the most current image as the video plays and makes that part brighter. And then it takes the tail of the star trails and fades it off. So it kind of looks like a comet. You know how a comet has that bright nucleus and a fading tail? That's what this does. And so I'm going to turn on comment mode. I do want longer tails though, or longer trails, I guess. I don't have any dark images. Dark images would help compensate for ISO noise. So after you took all of your 200 images, you could put your lens cap on and let it keep taking photos, and those would be your dark images. And all those dark images show are the noise, the hot pixels, the sensor noise, and stacking software like this can reduce that out of the final image. I don't have it, so it doesn't matter if I have this on or not. And then the other thing we do need to make sure we turn on is the cumulative image saving. And what that does is every time it processes the next bit of trail, it's going to save it as a new image. And so that is going to, because we're not making the video in this software, we're just creating more images. So you could just let this process and have one final image of all of the trail, and you could post just a image with circles. But we want a video, so after every step we want to export whatever trail has been created. And again, this will make more sense once I do it. So I'm just going to leave the default name there is fine. I'm going to change where it goes to though. I don't want it in this no planes folder because that'd be confusing. So I'm going to call this Comet Trails. Sure. And we're going to save those in there. And that should be all of the settings we need to change. So I'm going to come up here and click this image. It kind of looks like it has a database symbol on the front of it. And we're going to click that and it's going to start processing. You can actually see it as it goes along here. This is going to take a while, but you see it's already starting to make those trails. Again, don't worry about this. We'll take care of that later. And now we just sit back and wait for it to go through the 212 images or something. Well, after about 5 minutes, it finished processing that batch of images. And because I had gap filling turned on, it took me to this gap filling page at the end. And really, for what we're doing, we didn't need gap filling. Gap filling is only for if you want the final image, whatever this output image to be, to have the gaps filled. Now, because we exported the image along the way, it wasn't necessarily processing the gaps. So you probably didn't need to do that. You probably could have just used the lighten mode. But if you did want your final image to be exported and be able to have a little processing on it, then you can turn on the gap filling. And to use this, just turn on your overlay, and you just want to adjust your slider until pretty much only the stars are highlighted in green, and then you can fill in the gaps more or less depending on how much you need. I had a pretty solid image. There weren't really very many gaps, so this isn't going to be showing you much of what that does. But if you did have some big gaps, this could make the final single image look nicer, but we don't really need to worry about it. So we're done with this software, and we can close out of that. And if we come and look here at the comet trails that we made, I can show you what I meant by this is the start image, and then it was saving after every time it processed. So if we come here it started to make those. And if we come down a little bit further, it's got more of the trails, and continuing on, you can see it started to do that fade I was talking about. So it looks like a comet nucleus with a fade as the tail goes off to the end. And yeah, so these photos are what we're going to make the final video out of. But first we need to take care of those lights that I was talking about, because I don't want the car streaks to be showing up in my image. So to do that, we're going to come here and go back to one of the exported no planes images, and I'm going to open up Photoshop. You can do this with just about any editing software that you feel comfortable with. It just needs to be able to remove the sky. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to pick one that does not have cars in it, where the front foreground looks nice. This one looks pretty good. So I'll drag that in. And I'm going to come up and use the cheat, the select sky. And in this case, it works really well. And I'm just going to delete that. No, I don't want content to wear. I just want, whoops. I'm going to unlock it, and then I'm going to delete it. And that way it just completely removes it, and there's nothing there. So I can overlay this on top of the other photos. I'm going to deselect that. And if I wanted to, I could come and process just this foreground. You could come in here to like camera raw filter, but of course this is based off of a JPEG, so I'm not going to be able to get much out of it. But I could tweak it just a little bit if I wanted to. In the final video I did, but for this demo I'm not going to worry about it. But now I have to save this. Whoops, of course on Macs you can't just Command Shift S anymore, you have to do save as a copy. Now one thing to note when saving out this file is you do need to save it as a PNG or another file type that supports transparencies, because if I were to save this as a JPEG, all this spot where there's no background would be filled with white, because JPEGs don't support transparencies and we need a transparent image. So I'm just going to do a PNG. I'm going to say no sky. I'm just going to drop that in this root folder. Save that, and for speed I'm going to do a large file. Okay, we're done with Photoshop. Now we just need to open up our video editor of choice. For me, that's going to be Premiere Pro. All right, now I've created a new video project, so next I need to import those photos. That was in this Comet Trails folder, so I'm just going to drag that in. Now, depending on your software, it may import the images and set them to play at a specific time frame. In my case, the default for Premiere is just about 5 seconds. That's going to be way too slow for what we need, but that's okay because I can show you how to fix that. What I ended up actually doing for this particular video is have each image play at 4 frames, not seconds, frames. So that would be at 24 frames per second, 6 images per second. And we're just doing 1 image for 5 seconds. So we need to fix that. What I'm going to do is select all of them. They are in numerical order, so I'll drag that over. You can see 5 seconds is way too long. That's what, like a 17-minute video. But if I select all and then come here to speed and duration, I need to click this ripple edit shifting trailing clips, and what that's going to do is as I adjust this, it's going to remove all the gaps between the images and keep the timeline compressed, all of the clips stuck together. And I'm just going to change this from 4 seconds to 0 seconds, and then I'm going to make it 4 frames, and then I'm going to hit OK. And you can see it's a much shorter video, somewhere around 30 seconds. And if I do a preview of that, you can see it's starting to play out just the way we want it. Now, in order to get rid of those streaky cars going by, so what I need to do is come back here and grab that no sky PNG file that I created and drag that into the video. And And then I can drop that on top of my other layers and make it the same length. To zoom in to make sure I get this because these are so small. Okay, that's the same length. And now you can see no matter where I go, the foreground isn't changing because it's showing this static image. Now there's nothing left to do but export it. So I'm going to do match source, H.264. I do want to adjust this because this is an odd shaped image. I'm going to make sure my ratio is locked because I do want to keep the same framing. I don't want to crop into like a 16:9, but I don't need it to be quite that big. So I'm just going to do a 1080. And then I want to change the frame rate to give us a little bit more slow motion. That's the 24 frames per second. I'll specify where it's going to go. That's fine. And this will be Chapel on the Rock star circles. And we'll export that. Now let's look at our final video. There it goes. Now you may have noticed at the very beginning, at least I did, this plane here is a little distracting. And so if I were to publish this, I'd actually go back and do all of this again, but delete that initial starting frame because I don't know. I would want to start on a clean background, which is what I did in the intro video that I showed you. I would want to start with nothing to distract the viewer. I just want to start at like, right there, but not have the star trails forming yet. So I'd go back and reprocess all of this without that little streak in it. But that's me being extremely picky. But that is going to do it for this episode. If you appreciated the information in it, please consider giving it a thumbs up. My hands are so low. Please consider giving it a thumbs up. It's going to help other people find my video when they're looking for this type of tutorial. And then while you're at it, please consider subscribing if you want to see more content creator focused videos such as tutorials like this, product reviews, audio product reviews, anything that a content creator might find interesting. But until next time, I'm doing what I love. Keep doing what you love. Thanks for watching.